It is estimated that through individual donations alone, hundreds of billions of dollars are donated to charity worldwide every year. This is a lot of money, so let's ask ourselves whether we've actually achieved change through our donations. Have we done the most good we could with the resources that we had? But let's take a step back and assume that you are donating, and you had the choice between donating to cancer research, chlorine dispensers in Kenya, and raising awareness for climate change. Have a second to think about where you would like to donate to. Ask yourself what made you choose wanting to donate to one charity over the other, and then ask yourself whether you think your choice of donation will lead to the maximum good for the amount that you had available to give. We'll find out the answers to all of these questions by the end of this talk. We'll examine what we as a society get wrong about donations and how to fix that. And I'll walk you through my own experience to becoming a rational donor. But first, I have a question for all of you in the audience. By a show of hands, how many of you here donate regularly? Seeing that there are some hands that are raised and some that aren't, let's jump into some of the reasons as to why many of us may choose not to donate. There are 4 broad reasons for this. The first is the collective action problem. We choose not to donate because we feel like our donation is insignificant, that there's no point to giving when no one around us also gives. The issue is that everyone feels this way, so no one ends up donating to begin with. The second is psychological barriers. A lot of us don't donate because we feel like we need to research a lot about what charity to give to, and in the case of students, we need to ask our parents to make a donation on our behalf. All of these things make the simple task of donating seem so much more difficult than it actually is, and so we put it off for later, but eventually never get back to it. The third is a lack of trust. Many of us choose not to donate because we feel like our donation may be misused, that we're giving to a charity that isn't genuine enough, and so we do not donate. And last, forgetfulness and ignorance. We forget, or much worse, ignore the world suffering that accrues around us. And that means that even though our donation can go a long way to preventing suffering of others, we still do not give. But what about those who choose to donate? Often, we donate because we are guilted into the process. We feel bad every time we see a dying animal or a starving child, and we give. Second, because we want to seem righteous to ourselves, but more importantly to others around us, to give them the impression that we are generous, that we are good people in society worth looking up to. Third, because we have a connection to the charity or the cause area that we want to give to, whether it be personal or political, because we resonate with what that cause area is all about. And last, for religious reasons. We may donate because we think that our donation may bring us reward either in this life or one in the future. Take a wild guess. Where do you think the world's donations mainly go to? The answer is religious organizations. The Vatican collects $55 million from donors, not to mention how much some of the largest temples in India collect, which, by the way, have a greater wealth than the largest Indian tech companies that might operate in India. But now, all of these reasons that we just discussed for why we may choose to donate may seem like very reasonable reasons for you to want to give. But do you think they're enough to ensuring that our donation does the most good in the world? Probably not, because all of these reasons are centered around you and why you might want to donate. And they're never about whether the donation is going to a charity or to a cause area that helps the most number of people. Because it isn't just about whether we donate or how much we donate that matters, but about where and for what reasons. And we know this because even though it only costs $5, the price of a plate of dinner or lunch at a restaurant, to prevent a child in sub-Saharan Africa from dying, and only $3,500, the cost of maybe a few months of rent, to save the life of that child from hunger and from disease, 14,000 children die every day due to disease and starvation, according to UNICEF data. This is shocking, because even though the world's donations are going up, they're not going to the right places. So where are they going instead? They're often going to charities that are ineffective, charities that carry out interventions that just do not work. An example of a charity such as this is the charity called the One Laptop Per Child initiative. This charity raised money to give laptops for free to children in rural parts of developing nations to help improve educational outcomes there. The cost of each laptop ended up being twice the cost that they estimated, which meant that it was not cost effective. But it wasn't just that it wasn't cost effective, it literally did not work. Even though they did provide laptops, there was no improvement in educational attainment. Because the real thing that students needed was not access to the internet, but instead clean schools. They needed deworming to happen so that they wouldn't fall sick, so that they could actually attend. So it's important to not give to charities just because they're flashy and they might bring about some sort of change, but instead to give to charities that have evidence that backs up the results that they claim to be causing. In other cases, charities are often exhaust a lot of the money that you give to them through donations, through paying for high administrative costs, to paying top salaries for top executives who work in them, which means that the money you give may not even be used to actually lead to change. But the worst place your money could go to is charities that make the problem much worse. You might want to donate to a charity that wants to give free medical supplies to those in rural parts of a country. However, you know that even if a charity might be good-intentioned, the path to hell is always paved by good intentions. Because the same charity that might be distributing free supplies could actually leave the region devoid of these supplies if it chooses to pack its bags and head someplace else, or if donations run dry for a month and they can no longer operate. Because they've made the region dependent on them and wiped away local sellers of medicines and other medical equipment, the entire region suffers as a result. So it's important to not give to charities that might actually be making things significantly worse. Now, all of these things mean that our donations may not actually be going to the places where they need to be going. So what should we do instead? Now, all of you in this room might feel like these are really insurmountable challenges. You are not alone. I too started off not knowing what to do every time someone bumped into me in the mall and pleaded for a donation, or how to hold back my emotion every time I saw a graphic ad on YouTube that showed a mother crying as her children needed money for surgery to survive. And I knew that even if I did donate, which I did, I wasn't actually doing anything. I didn't know if that was enough to solve the problem, and so I always felt bad. However, through research and being exposed to a new way of donating by those around me, I stumbled upon the ITN framework, where the I stands for importance, the T stands for tractability, and the N stands for neglectedness. It was with this framework that I was able to know what charity and what cause area to donate to. In terms of what importance means, it refers to how many and how vulnerable the people we are giving to are. For example, we might think that donating to a charity that wants to save the life of a child who needs that money might be the best place to give. However, your money is only going to save one child. And as brutal as the trade-off is, it might be a much better idea to give to a charity that wants to save the lives of so many more people, because everyone in this world has equal moral significance. So the most rational thing to do is to perhaps donate to a charity that would use your money to help more people. The T stands for tractability. Tractability refers to how likely an intervention is to succeed. An NGO operating in Afghanistan will never succeed in improving access to education for young girls there, because unfortunately, the Taliban would never allow for such an NGO to exist. However, an NGO in India that wants to bring education access to girls will. So it makes so much more sense to donate to a charity that will actually use its money for enacting change. In terms of what neglectedness refers to, this refers to what cause areas lack resources or have room for more. Cancer research may sound like a very important field for all of you to donate to, but it already has an estimated $6.4 billion allocated to it every year. South Asian air pollution, on the other hand, which claims about the same number of deaths in the region, has 85 times less funding allocated towards it. So it might be a much better idea to donate to those areas. You might also remember the Haiti earthquake back in 2010. Red Cross back then raised a record high of $500 million, exceeding its threshold several times. You might be thinking that because Red Cross had so much money, it was able to help so many people. However, if you know about the principle of diminishing marginal returns, you'd know that it isn't just about how much money a charity has, but about the value of each additional dollar you give to it. Because even though Red Cross had so much money allocated towards it through donations, it wasn't actually able to spend all of it. It makes so much more sense, though, to give your donation to a charity that lacks resources, to give your money to a charity that wants to improve the rights of animals that are suffering in factory farms, because that's where your $1 or your 1 rupee would matter so much more. So what did we do after we discovered the ITN framework? Back in 2021, I and a group of friends organized the Chirec Parliamentary Debate Tournament, which was an online international debate tournament, and we raised a modest 40,000 rupees, around $500, towards this highly effective charity called GiveDirectly. It was with this money that the charity was able to give unconditional cash transfers to poor, destitute people in sub-Saharan Africa. They were able to use this money to actually spend on medical supplies, sending their children to school, and in many cases, even investing in their small businesses so that they had money to put food on the table. And we knew that this was a charity that was highly effective because, just go back. We knew this was a charity that was highly effective because other organizations, such as GiveWell, had rated it to be very cost-effective. It helped save many, many lives because it did have a lot of outreach, which fulfilled the importance criteria, and it also had many funding gaps, which we were able to also contribute to. As with any framework, there are obvious drawbacks as well, which I want to get into. The first is the issue of time frames. Now, we might have two charities. One charity that has low risk and low or reasonable reward. So if you were to donate to a charity such as the Against Malaria Foundation that uses your money to distribute bed nets in the region to prevent deaths due to malaria, that's a charity that is low risk because the money you donate to it will obviously lead to bed nets being distributed. On the other hand, there are high-risk, high-reward charities. So charities, for example, that use the money you give to them to research the cure to the next pandemic, for instance. You would never know the results of such a charity until you live into the future and know whether that money was actually useful. Now, it's really difficult to decide between these two charities and where to give to. But the rational thing to do is to treat your donation like an investment, to diversify your portfolio of donations and donate to both of these types of charities so that you can do the most good. Then is the issue of applying moral weights. All of us in this room have different worldviews. Some of us might believe that animals and humans have equivalent moral significance, such as myself, whereas others may disagree. Some people might believe that those in the future matter more than those in the present, because there are more people in the future than there will ever be in the present, and otherwise. So in those cases, it's hard to decide what counts as important. Again, the answer is to just donate based off of your individual worldview. Because that way, we make sure that we don't put all our eggs into one basket, and we diversify our donations across different groups of people. That way, we fulfill all obligations we have to them, even if we might not have the same obligation to every single individual. Now, all of you in this audience want to do good in the world, and some of you may feel helpless about it. But there's one thing that we can all do, and that is donate. Because all of us may not actually end up pursuing careers that research the cure to the next big disease. All of us might not be working in an NGO that is able to reach millions of people. But there is one thing we can always do, and that is use our money to donate. And hopefully, by this point in the talk, we know how to donate. Donate effectively and to the right places. You can consider donating to specific funds, such as the GiveWell Fund or the Effective Altruism Fund. These are both organizations that do their own research as to what charities are the most effective. And here is GiveWell and the 3 charities that they've listed as most effective. And here is Effective Altruism Funds that uses your donations to donate to more long-term causes. If you're not very interested in donating to funds as such, and you want to give instead to charities of your own choice, you can always consider doing your own research and finding out what charities fulfill this criteria, and also making sure that the charity is transparent, making sure that the charity has evidence that backs up its results. And it's through this that you can make sure that your donation is actually meaningful. You have the ability to save the life of another child in another part of the world who deserves to live past the age of 5 by donating correctly. You have that ability. So let's use that advantage of ours through donations to make a difference in another part of the world. Let's collectively change the way we donate so that we never have to worry about whether our donation has done its part in the world to making it a much better place to live in. And for those reasons, I'm incredibly happy for all of you to come and listen to this talk. Thank you.